And welcome you all to coming to today's program. Today is Dutch Oven Cooking by Mike Schuldt, and he's an extension agent out in Custer County, which is out in Miles City, about 10 hours from where I'm at. And so it's the power of technology, and so I'm glad that Mike stepped up to the plate and said that he would teach us a little bit more about Dutch oven cooking. So take it away, Mike.
Thank you, Caitlin, for inviting me today. I've always done the Dutch oven cooking as a hands-on class, so this is brand new to me. So bear with me today as we work through some of the challenges of virtual teaching. I've been teaching the Dutch oven cooking for 4-Hers and adults for about 20 years now, and I try to keep it just as simple as possible. And hopefully, what you'll learn here today is going to be a real basic method of using your Dutch oven cooking for some outdoor food preparation and be successful right away with that. I did learn to teach this from a couple of old guys in our organization, Terry Wolf, who was at the 4-H Center, and Dave Phillips, who was the Fergus County agent. They got me started in this, and much of what I talk about in this class will be as a result of their teaching me how to do this. Along with the class today, I did prepare a handout that is available, and it's Dutch oven cooking, and it's very simple. It's only about 8 pages long, and it's got some tried and true recipes in there, as well as the full instructions on how to do what we're going to do today. We are going to be preparing a peach cobbler, which is one of the most traditional Dutch oven cooking dishes out there. But before we get started, I want to talk a little bit about the equipment that we use Dutch oven cooking. There's a number of different types of ovens. They range in size from 8 to 16 inches, depending on how big of a dish or crowd you want to feed. And the traditional Dutch oven that many of you may have is one like this old Griswold oven that I have. It has a round top to it. It has no legs to it. This is just a 10-inch standard round top Dutch oven. It works great for stovetop cooking or cooking something in your oven in your kitchen, but it's very difficult to use outdoors as there's no place to hold your coals on the top, and no legs to keep it up above the heat source. So although these are great cooking items, very useful, I use it all the time, it's not the one you want to have when you're going to do your outdoor cooking. What you really want to do is get something like a dish top Dutch oven similar to this one. It's got a nice about an inch recess on the top. It's got legs on the bottom to keep it up above your heat source. This one happens to be a extremely deep model, the deeper model of the 12-inch Dutch oven. This one works great for larger casseroles, stews. If you want to cook a pie, you can put a trivet in the bottom of it, hold that pie pan up off the bottom, and you can cook a pie in there just like you would in any other oven. The 12-inch oven does tend to be the standard. It's the one I use the most. There's also a Dutch oven model that's like, it has the dish top to it. However, it has no legs under it. This is somewhat more versatile if you're going to use it in your house, in your oven in your home kitchen. But if you're going to use it outside, you need something like a trivet like this to hold it up off the ground to put your coals under. This is actually the oven we're going to use today. 12-inch, like I say, it's a 12-inch oven. It's about 4 inches deep, and it works quite well for most of the dishes that you'll find in this recipe book. As we move forward, the cobbler recipe that we're going to be preparing today is one of the recipes in the recipe book here. It's towards the back of the recipe book. On the second to the last page, there is instructions for a number of different cobblers, and it's a great place to start if you're just getting started in Dutch oven cooking. A little bit more about the equipment that's necessary as we get prepared. You're going to want a pair of leather gloves. You're going to be working with a hot Dutch oven in around the coals. Keep yourself from getting burned. You're going to want some sort of a device to lift the lid hot or to lift the oven. And this is just a very simple lid lifter here. There's a number of them on the market. This one just happens to be the one I have. You're gonna need a pair of tongs, metal tongs, to be able to handle the coals. Something to start the fire. You'll need tin foil, lighter fluid, and we're going to today use just charcoal briquettes. Charcoal briquettes are very simple, very uniform way to heat your oven. You can cook with coals from a fire. However, you have to maintain a good hot fire to continue transferring coals to your oven to make sure you get even heat. And as a start, I think before you get more experience, stick with the coals, follow the directions in the handout. Coals provide even heat, and you can get exactly the temperature you want in your oven by the number of coals put on the oven and where you place them. There's a great chart in here on the second to the last page on the size of the oven and how many coals it takes to get to the temperature you need for your recipe, as well as whether to put how many put underneath it and how many to put on the lid. It's very important to pay attention to that to make sure you don't burn your dishes. Like I said, we are going to use charcoal. Buy a good quality charcoal. Make sure you keep it dry in storage. I use a 5-gallon bucket to store mine in just to make sure that it doesn't take on moisture. Good quality charcoal will burn a little longer, easier to start, and give you that even heat that you're looking for. You're also going to need something like a chimney here to get those coals started so that they're ready to go once you get your dish prepared. We're talking today mostly about how to do this outdoors. So you're limited. You don't have a kitchen sink. You don't have a whole bunch of the conveniences of the kitchen when you are working outside. And so to start with, we're going to prepare our oven for cooking. And before we do that, we know that we need to food safety. We need to make sure our hands are clean. Outdoors, you don't necessarily have running hot water, but we do have the hand sanitizer that everybody's so familiar with these days. Yeah, and so go ahead and just sanitize your hands before we get into this. I'll go ahead and I'll take the lid off of this oven. Notice that this oven has a nice black color to it, and it's quite shiny. One of the challenges of Dutch oven cooking is to make sure that you keep the season in your oven and make sure that when you purchase one, it's properly seasoned. Never ever do you put soap in a Dutch oven. In order to clean this oven, hot water, and wipe it out, and then just wipe it with cooking oil while it's still hot to make sure that the oil permeates into the cast iron. The cobbler, however, that we're going to make has quite a bit of sugar in it. These sugary type dessert dishes that we do are a little more difficult to clean up. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to line the Dutch oven. I use an extra wide tin foil to do that. And all I do is I get a piece that's just slightly larger than your Dutch oven, and start by working that down in. You got to be very careful because you can't tear the tin foil, otherwise your dish will leak through the foil and start cooking underneath your foil. So work it down in here and form it to the shape of your oven, making sure that you get rid of most of the airspace underneath it. And then it's very important that once you get it down in there, you need to take and roll the foil to the inside, because the Dutch oven cooks by having the lid and bottom cast iron surface meeting up correctly. If you got foil in there, it'll prevent the heat from transferring throughout your oven. So go ahead and we'll get this liner finished up. They do also make a commercial liner that's pre-formed for this. They're great. I just, however, find that the foil is what I have. The other thing about the foil, when I'm all done, I can lift the whole dish out of there. We don't eat it all. It's already ready to cover back up and put in the refrigerator, back in the cooler. So foil works great like this. Just make sure you have the heavy-duty wide foil. Get that. This is what it looks like once you get the liner all put in it. Go ahead and we'll set that aside now since it's ready to go. I make sure that food safety. I know Tara will probably be watching this here eventually, and I'll catch heck if I don't maintain my food safety. So outdoors, like I say, you don't have all the conveniences of your kitchen. So the peach cobbler, we start out with just canned peaches. Grocery store, you drain off as much of the juice as you can. Drain that into a dish here. Our cake mix calls for water, and I find that if I replace the water with the juice off of the peaches, makes a much richer dish at the end. We're done with that. So once you get the juice all drained out of there, take just a nice sharp knife, and you start in here and you just start cutting crosses while the peaches are in the can. That'll mince those peaches up so that you don't have huge chunks in the dish that you're going to be cooking. Once you get them fairly well cut up, the fruit always goes in the bottom. So just go ahead and dump that right in the Dutch oven. The recipe calls for 3 15-ounce cans of peaches. Very hard to find a 15-ounce can of peaches. They're all larger than that these days, it seems like. So I use a 30-ounce, and then I did happen to find one 15, so getting pretty close to the 3 cans that the recipe calls for. If you're going to use fresh fruit, which you can, rather than the canned fruit, just make sure that you have about 3 to 4 cups of fresh fruit that goes in the bottom of your Dutch oven. So go ahead and we'll drain the liquid off of this other can of peaches and do the same. Same thing here with the knife. We'll get them cut up just to make sure we have a nice fruit layer at the bottom of our Dutch oven. That being done, go ahead and we'll set that aside again. And we need to make our cake mix. And in outdoor cooking, I like to mix my cobbler in a Ziploc bag. So that way I don't have any cleanup, and it's very, very simple to mix and clean up at the end of this. Start out with just a standard cake mix. This happens to be a Betty Crocker. It's a yellow cake. I do like a yellow cake for a peach cobbler. For some of the other dishes, just experiment. We use a white cake mix sometimes for more of the pineapple or the apple type of a cobbler. The yellow cake mix does seem to give the right flavor for the peach. Transferred the cake mix into the Ziploc bag. The recipe also calls for a little bit of cinnamon in there, half a teaspoon. So I'll go ahead and I'll put that right in with the mix. And they do call for some nutmeg, so I like the fresh nutmeg, so I just grind a little bit in there just for a little extra flavor as we prepare this. Following that, takes 3 eggs according to the cake mix direction. Drop our eggs in there, challenge is to get them in there without missing the bag. As we get that done, the last thing on the cake mix direction is actually a cup of water. And with the cobblers, I tend to short myself just a little bit on the liquid, as we got quite a bit of liquid left in the fruit. So I'm going to run it up there about 3/4 of a cup of this juice that I've preserved out of the peach cans. So put all of that in the cake mix here. When we seal this bag up, I want to trap just a little bit of air so we have room to mix this up. And working with kids, this is their favorite part. They just get to work this back and forth until it gets completely mixed up. Make sure the egg yolks get broke and mixed into this. As we work through this, there are a number of other ways to make a cobbler. If you're just working with kids, one of the simplest cobblers out there is to get a 12-ounce can of 7-Up and a cake mix. Doesn't require any eggs, oil, or anything like that. Now that I say oil, I probably ought to put the oil in here. Good thing I have my trusty helper. It does call for a 1/2 cup of oil, so I will go ahead and make that save for the day. But as you prepare a very simple cobbler with kids, that's 7-Up and just a cake mix. Those are the only 2 ingredients it requires. It will make a nice cobbler no matter what fruit you put in there. So pick a fruit and mix a cake mix with a pop. So now that we've got this all mixed up, all we do is we drop this over the top of the fruit and make sure it's good and evenly covered. Go ahead, just squeeze it right out of the bag, work into the Dutch oven here. There we go. Around just a little bit. Try not to stir the fruit up at all in there. It'll have a nice look just like that. Should all be ready to go. Stick the lid on. Make sure none of the tin foil is in between the bottom and the lid. And that one is now ready to go to the heat. Like I said, for a Dutch oven cobbler, we're going to use the briquettes, 6 of which will go on the bottom and 18 on the top. We use twice as many as the diameter, so we got a 12-inch oven. Gives us 24 coals total, and that's what I started in the chimney outside, and we're going to go ahead and move out there and get some heat on the oven. So, grab my tools. Okay, go ahead and head on out. I got one thing I got to go grab. So, we're cooking out right here out in front of my garage on the concrete pad, and if you put tin foil down with these coals, you won't get a charcoal stain or a heat stain in your concrete. So, like I said, I got these all started. I'll go ahead and I'll put 6 down here. You want them spread out quite evenly here so that your heat doesn't get concentrated in any one spot underneath that oven. Go ahead and we're just going to set that oven right on top of that. At this point, I'll go ahead and put my gloves on so my hands don't get too hot here. And we're going to go ahead and take our pliers, get the rest of the coals onto the lid of the oven. And then we need to spread them out. We want most of the heat over on the edge. That way it'll transfer the heat to the bottom and provide a nice even heat all the way around. So all but about 5 of them, leave 5 in the center, and that will brown the top of your cobbler quite nicely. Put the rest of the heat on the edge, and it's ready to cook. As this cooks along, just be aware you can do this just about anywhere. I've done it in the snowbank, and you do it out. You can do it out on a hot sunny day. Just be aware that if the sun is shining on your Dutch oven, it's going to get heated up about 30 degrees more than if you were in a shady spot. And if you're, of course, cooking in a snowbank, just add a few more coals on there just to compensate for the loss in heat to the winter day. As this cooks along, this cobbler is going to take about 45 minutes to cook. And as it cooks, about every 10 minutes, I'm going to come out here and I'm going to take my lid lifter. I'm going to just lift the lid and turn it about 90 degrees. I'm going to pick up the oven and turn it as well. That just makes sure that if there's a hot spot here, it's not burning somewhere. So you just make sure you get a good even heat all the way around. So with that, that's pretty much the basics of Dutch oven cooking. And if Cheryl will follow me back inside for just a second here, I'll just go ahead and get this thing wrapped up. So I did have a little preparation time today this morning, and just like any good cooking show, you got to say, "Man, I wish you were here and you could smell this." And I did put together a nice apple cobbler here this morning, and we're going to go ahead and, like I said, in order to get this out of the oven, just take this tin foil that we put in there to start with, and you can take and lift it right out if my fingers work. Lift it right out. You can serve it right off the tin foil. So right here. So like I said, a little more challenging for me to teach virtually. This is actually my first try at doing something like this, but as you can see, this cobbler baked all the way through. Nice. It actually happens to be a nice apple cobbler. Nice filling. Like I said, wish you were here. And if you ever have any questions, feel free to call me. I'm right here at the Custer County Extension office. Be happy to help you in anything you'd like to learn or questions about Dutch oven cooking. That, Caitlin, that's what I had for you today.
You did an awesome job. Thank you. I can smell it through the digital waves. Thank you very much. And now you get to have 2 meals to eat this week.
Yeah, Cindy already put dibs in on this one.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Wonderful. So a few people said excellent for videography on Cheryl's part. So thank you, Cheryl, for being a trusty assistant. And then, oh gosh, you have all kinds of comments. Those look fantastic from Cindy. Also, I love the aluminum foil idea. I hadn't thought of that before, so thank you for that. And this was wonderful. Now I know what my husband is getting for Father's Day. So you have inspired other people. And so with that, I'm going to open up our poll for some response. You can ask Mike some questions in the meantime, but let me just get that panel up. And you can give us a response or two. And if you are joining us for the first time for our Wednesday webinars, we still have a few more this week. And there was just a comment, and I will, as soon as I get the poll open, I'll let you answer that question. Here we go. Okay, so have you ever tried blueberry or raspberry? I'm allergic to peach and apple.
So I have done the blueberry at one of the classes that I did. It will work with any fruit. So pick the fruit you like, raspberry, blackberry, blueberries. Just experiment. Fresh fruit does tend to need a little more cooking time than canned fruit.
Okay.
So add a little time to your cook. Experiment, whatever.
Okay. And so how much time are you talking? Like 3 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes? How much is a little time?
Oh, say 10 minutes.
Okay.
And so
Okay.
one of the things that you look at is, you know it's done when you put your knife in it and it comes out clean. So
Okay.
that's like any cake that you would make. You just don't want to be pulling the fruit and the cake batter back out with your knife. So it depends how much liquid's in that cake. A lot of times, how much time it takes for that thing to finish up. Sometimes I think it has to do with how much humidity's in the air. But just as a rule of thumb, start with about 35 to 45 minutes. And if it takes it an hour, don't get panicked.
Okay. The next question that someone asked was, with berries, would you recommend fresh, frozen, or a combination of both?
I would prefer the fresh myself, just because they have more flavor. But as far as actually making the cobbler, it's not going to make a lot of difference. Like I said, it just has to do with how much liquid you end up with in your cobbler that is going to dictate how long it's going to cook to get that liquid into it.
Okay. It looks like, I hope I didn't miss any other questions that came in. So as people respond to the poll, I have one more question that I'm curious about myself. So if someone tries the cobbler, what would be the next dish to try? That would be an easy one to try to learn.
So like I said, the cobbler is just a cake mix and fruit, pretty much. So it's pretty simple, straightforward. There's a couple other dessert recipes in there that I like. I made it's a honey apple crisp. It
Okay.
turns out pretty nice. And of course, if you're allergic to apples, that isn't going to work for you. But maybe pears would be a good option there. But there's also one if you really like chocolate. It's just chocolate cake, chocolate fudge mix, and then you put chocolate ice cream on the top of it. And so it makes a really nice, really moist chocolate cake by doing that. Those are a couple that would be the next step. And then you probably want to move on into a main dish type of a thing. Pork chops, like I say, any of the stews, casserole type things that you would make in an oven casserole dish, you can do it in the Dutch oven. So move on to a main dish. We've even done salmon fillet. You just lay a salmon fillet in there on a board and season it up with lemon and whatever else you like on your salmon, and it'll bake along just like it would in your oven. So be creative. The recipes we put in the handout, we know they work. But don't be afraid to try and adapt any of your favorites to the Dutch oven.
Awesome. And so I will send out the recipe to everybody who participated and also put that on the link for the YouTube video. So I have a question that just came in. What food should be avoided?
I don't know that there really is anything that you need to avoid. Like I say, if it works in your other oven, it's going to be fine here. If you aren't going to cook something sugary, line your oven, because the sugar tends to pull the season out of the oven. And another thing is, if you do something like heavy tomato sauce, with the acid in there will also pull the oil seasoning out. And so if you're going to do spaghetti sauce or something like that in there, really work on re-seasoning your oven after that. I wouldn't say avoid it, but just recognize that there's some challenges.
Okay. Oh, and a comment that just came in is very cool. Thank you. That's from Adam Sigler. I've been doing a little Dutch oven cooking lately and having fun with it. Looking forward to doing more. So thank you so much, Mike. This was attended with some different participants than the other programs. So thank you for giving us something a little different for our webinars. If this is your first or your second webinar of joining with the MSU Extension noontime webinars, we have 2 more this week. Tomorrow is artesian breads, and that's going to be taught by Terry Andrews. And then on Thursday is making disc fajitas, and that's going to also be taught by someone from the eastern side of the Montana state. Disc fajitas, I'm going to be hopefully learning exactly what a disc is. I'm not from the farming community. So that one should be a good program as well. So I will be sending out the resource that Mike talked about. And so thank you for joining us. And like Mike said, he is always available to give a call, and I'll send that in the resource as well, his contact information. And he's in the Miles City, Custer County Extension office. So thank you so much for joining us, and have a great day. Thank you.